My breath caught in my throat. Before me stood a woman of breathtaking beauty, like a vision from a dream. In her late 20s, she possessed a physique akin to that of a top model, every contour of her form accentuated by the sleekness of her tactical suit. Her features were a captivating blend of Caucasian and light Asian traits, resulting in a visage of rare and extraordinary allure. Her hair were long, slightly ondulated, and looked like white silk. Her eyes held a depth that seemed to draw me in, while her smooth, flawless skin seemed to glow in the faint light of the lamp above. I stood there, transfixed by her presence, unable to tear my gaze away. She was unlike any girl I had ever seen before. She smiled gently at me, her eyes sparkling with warmth and kindness. "Hi, Fabian," she said softly, her voice melodic and inviting. "We've been expecting you." I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine at her words. How did she know my name? Before I could utter any question, she continued, "Don't be worried. We're friends. We're here to help you. Please come with us. Your friend Jake can't wait to see you again." I couldn't believe my ears. "Jake is alive? He's with you?" I exclaimed, almost ecstatically. She smiled and nodded, gesturing for me to step into the vehicle. My heart was pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension as I settled into the back of the vehicle, whose white, spacious interior boasted a sleek, minimalist design, offering comfort without distraction. Its transparency provided an unobstructed view of the monochromatic world outside. I occupied the back seat alone, while the girls sat in the front right seat. The driver, clad in a bulky camouflage suit, his face hidden behind his helmet's dark visor, controlled the vehicle from the front left seat. He never spoke a word for the entirety of our trip, and his focus remained fixed on the holographic control panel before him. The windshield portion of the vehicle also functioned as a screen displaying a mix of navigation data and augmented reality. As the journey began, the girl turned to introduce herself as Jade, indicating Jay-Z, the driver, with a nod. "We're headed to the base," she informed me, her tone reassuring. "We'll arrive in exactly 14 minutes. The vehicle was speeding along the tunnel, though the sensation of movement was almost imperceptible, and its exact velocity eluded me. We continued in the same direction I had walked towards earlier. "So, this is the monochrome city alternate reality, I presume?" I inquired. Jade's smile confirmed my assumption. "Yes, that's correct," she affirmed. "But we refer to it differently. You'll learn more at the base." Exiting the tunnel, the vehicle continued its run, floating above a metallic-looking strip that resembled a railroad, which hovered mid-air over a vast expanse of water, like a big lake. I looked back and realized we had just come out from inside a mountain. The landscape all around reminded me of the Nevada desert. No cities, no signs of life as far as the eye could see. The absence of color was stark, everything appearing in shades of gray, with only a few white clouds breaking the monotony of the gray sky. And there was a sun shining brightly, its white glow casting light over the landscape. In the distance, a shimmering city beckoned through the windshield, promising answers to the many questions in my mind, the most obvious and troubling of which being, why the hell had Jake stayed in this place for almost a year now? Upon nearing our destination, the cityscape revealed itself in all its futuristic shining glory. Large, very tall megastructures raised among smallest skyscrapers in a vast sprawling urban expanse, made entirely of what looked like metal and glass. Transparent tubes slithered and spiraled through the city buildings, serving as roads for those egg-shaped vehicles. Several black spherical objects, much larger than the egg-shaped vehicles, were flying in circles above the city, some of them maneuvering at lower altitudes within the maze of skyscrapers. "Welcome to our place," Jade exclaimed, as our vehicle reached the ground-level entrance of one of the impressive megastructures located in what I assumed to be the city center. At that point, I was speechless. 100-foot-tall massive door slowly opened in front of us, sliding noiselessly to the right. It didn't open completely, but just enough to allow for our vehicle to enter. Once inside, Jay-Z maneuvered our vehicle through an enormous, dimly lit chamber, a giant deserted space surrounded by colossal metallic walls. The floor was black, and I couldn't discern any ceiling, just a dark, never-ending void above us. After what felt like 20 minutes or so, our vehicle arrived at some kind of huge hangar somewhere within the megastructure, where it parked seemingly by itself on a designated spot marked with the number 11. The right and left sides of the vehicle dematerialized instantly, and Jade invited me to step out. The place looked like a giant, dazzling white shopping mall. On the bottom level, where we had parked, there were all sorts of vehicles parked, and just a few individuals walking around. On all the other levels above, everywhere I looked, crowds of people filled the place. There was music playing, but it wasn't of any genre I was familiar with. Jay-Z just walked away without saying a word, and I never saw him again. Jade and I walked towards a circular platform and stepped onto it. Jade touched a device on her left wrist and the platform started levitating, slowly rising to the third level, where we stepped off. There I immediately noticed how passers-by were glancing at me, surely puzzled by my otherworldly outfit. Then my attention shifted to a group of 5 people approaching us, all wearing some kind of gray uniforms. They came to meet and greet us, then they briefly spoke with Jade in a language I couldn't understand, and one of them, a middle-aged woman, gave Jade an opaque glass cube as big as a shoebox. Then they all waved goodbye and left. Jade touched the top of the cube, which dematerialized instantly, leaving only a pair of silver goggles in Jade's hands. Jade gave the goggles to me and said, "Try them on." When I did, I was amazed. I finally could see everything in colors again. She explained that in the city they all have special subcutaneous implants that allow them to see in colors, so they don't need the goggles. I turned to look at Jade. She was blonde, her magnificent eyes deep blue. Her lips painted in a subtle, natural pink, adding a touch of warmth to her fair complexion. I couldn't stop looking at her eyes. She smiled. For a moment, I forgot all about elevators and parallel realities. I was just happy to be there. With Jade. She invited me to walk with her along the pedestrian bridge that connected the 2 opposite sides of the 3rd level. She explained to me that the shopping mall-like place we were in was the recreational center inside the military base, and all the people I saw around were, in fact, either military or scientific personnel. The recreational center had 31 levels, which included gyms, medical facilities, food courts, distribution points for all sorts of goods, etc. Basically, anything anyone could possibly need. Through my goggles, the whole center was now exploding with vivid colors all around me. Jade took me to a cafeteria, which was fully automated. She said my friend Jake would be joining us shortly. We took seats at a small round table hovering in midair. The seats too levitated. We ordered our food through a holographic panel above the table. I was quite hungry, so I opted for a big vegetarian sandwich and a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. Jade ordered just a cappuccino. A flying drone quietly served us in no time. I was having a really good time with Jade. I realized it had been a long time since I had last experienced such a pleasant time with a girl. Things between my girlfriend and me hadn't been going so well lately. We were clearly on the verge of splitting up. "Fab. Hey, Fab!" A familiar voice shouted behind me. I turned around. Jake, removing his goggles, came running to our table. We hugged, happy to see each other again. "I knew you'd come to my rescue. I freaking knew it," he exclaimed. "You would do the same for me, old friend," I replied. "Well, I'll leave you 2 boys to do some catching up. I have to report to my superior anyway," Jade said, standing up. "Jake will then accompany you to your room, and I will see you again in the morning," she told me, before waving bye and leaving the premises. Jake and I couldn't stop staring at her as she walked out of the cafeteria. "I see you've met Jade," he said, with a wink and a teasing smirk. We both laughed. Our conversation then shifted to a more serious tone, as we took seats at the table and started talking about our situation. Jake told me that he had ended up here exactly as I had, and that the military monitored all accesses to that particular elevator in the abandoned building with the use of spy gear hidden in the elevator car, and that's how they knew I was coming here. Okay, Jake. I interrupted him. But what I really can't figure out is, why on earth have you been staying in this place for 11 months now? Haven't they allowed you to leave? What's going on, man? I could tell something was off, as Jake looked me in the eye in silence for a few uncomfortably long seconds. There's something you gotta know about this place, my friend, he finally said. It may be difficult for you to process what I'm about to tell you, but you see, he continued, time works differently in here. He paused. Go on, I said, anticipating some weird news. Well, he went on explaining, you see, from my point of view, I arrived here 3 days ago. But for you outside it's been 11 months. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I was trying to formulate my next question in my mind, but Jake continued. It means each day spent in this place equals to roughly 3.5 months in our reality. It took me a moment to process that shocking information. Then I asked the obvious. So why don't we leave immediately? And why haven't you left the same day you arrived here? Yes, I was just getting to that part, Jake replied, with a tone in his voice that didn't reassure me one tiny bit. You know, there's no way to use that elevator from inside this reality, Fab. The military here, they got secret passageways in and out of this world that connect it with many different realities, including ours. There's only one catch with the particular passageway to our reality. It opens and closes on its own accord, at regular intervals, and unfortunately they can't control it. So we have to wait for the next opening. Which, as I've been told, will occur in 34 days. And the last time it opened was just a week ago. Can you imagine that? The damn thing stays open for just a few minutes every time, so we'll have to be ready the next time it happens. We both remained silent for maybe 30 seconds, staring at each other. When they showed me the live video transmission from inside the elevator car, Jake then added, as you were just escaping from the dangerous floor, and I saw it was you in there, and that you were going to end up here like I did, I asked Jade to let me explain this whole matter to you, as I didn't want you to learn about it from unfamiliar faces. You surely understand now, my friend, don't you? We will be missing for about 10 years from our world. From their vantage point, we both have vanished without a trace. At that point, I didn't really know what else to say or think. I felt just exhausted, mentally and physically. I had a terrible headache and needed to catch some sleep. So, even though it was only late afternoon, I asked Jake to take me to my room, which was located on the 27th level in the recreational center. I slept like a baby and woke up well rested in the early hours of the morning after. My room had a very large window from which I could enjoy a wonderful view of the cityscape. I still couldn't believe I was actually there. A holographic panel appeared in the middle of the room, and a synthetic, soothing feminine voice greeted me with, "Good morning, Fabian," then invited me to choose my breakfast from a menu displayed on the hologram, which I promptly did, as I sure was hungry. A tray carrying the food I had chosen came flying out of a small opening in a wall a few seconds later. The voice then reminded me to wear my special goggles for my own comfort and safety, instructed me on how to use the goggles' augmented reality features, and informed me that Jade would come to pick me up shortly. In a closet in my room, I found clean clothes that had been prepared for me. I finished my breakfast, took a shower, wore the futuristic suit, and when Jade arrived, I was ready to spend the morning with her. I could barely hide my excitement to see her, and I kept sensing this special chemistry between the two of us. The morning schedule consisted of a series of orientation sessions with Jade and her superiors. They wanted me to get quickly accustomed to the new environment so that I could live a somewhat normal life during the time I had to spend in Monochrome City. They had done the same with Jake. At lunchtime, Jade took me to a nice restaurant where we were joined by Jake. The recreational center is full of nice places where to eat and fun things to do, and everything is provided free of charge. They never had a money system whatsoever, which I find fascinating. After lunch, the three of us hopped onto a shuttle-like vehicle down on the ground level, and I was offered a comprehensive guided tour of the city. It was such a breathtaking experience. The city looks so impressive. Several million people reside in Monochrome City. And by the way, the city's real name is New Sanctuary City. This inspiring, picturesque name replaced the original military designation as Outpost 87 a long time ago. In the evening, we returned to the base, found ourselves another cozy restaurant, and enjoyed dinner together. I was having a really good time with Jade and Jake, so much so that I had totally forgotten about the peculiar situation I was in. But after I gulped down an exquisite glass of red wine, Jade found the right moment to reintroduce the question. So, we talked for a couple of hours about it all. We discussed various possible scenarios that could manifest once Jake and I got back to our reality, especially the impact those lost 10 years would have on us and the people close to us. One thing was sure, we would have a lot of explaining to do, and of course, nobody would believe our incredible story. Not to mention the fact that we would reappear after 10 years without having aged. Anyway, there was really not much we could do to change the situation, we concluded. Jake had already had that same conversation with a special psychological counselor the day after he had arrived here, and he had reached the same obvious conclusion. We just had no choice but to spend the following month in New Sanctuary, make the best out of that unique life experience, thank God for being alive, and patiently wait for the day we would get back to our world, 10 years in the future. And so we did. This last month here in New Sanctuary City has been by far the best time of my life. Jake and I spent each day like tourists, as if we were having a long vacation at an exotic resort. We met people, made many new friends, explored the city, and learned much more about its history. As it turns out, the city started out as a military outpost of some kind many decades ago. Well, many decades ago from their own time perspective, anyway. The outpost was established inside a secret pocket universe, which is a small-sized universe inside a bigger one. Its main purpose was, and still is, to serve as a peaceful safe haven for refugees from many different alternate realities that were invaded by a certain interdimensional malevolent force. There is much more to the story, of course, but most of it is classified. This rabbit hole goes much deeper than Jake and I are allowed to know. I should also mention that we both had to undergo a sort of psychological test performed with a sophisticated machine, akin to a lie detector on steroids, as a condition for letting us return home, to ensure we weren't spies. Fortunately, we both passed the test without problems. Jake and I also found out that the hostile place I glimpsed during my elevator trip, the one where I saw all those glass boxes, was one of the alternate realities that has been invaded, and what I witnessed was, in fact, people held in cages, victims of an interdimensional human trafficking operation. Scary stuff. I was lucky not to get caught. The transdimensional elevator inside the condemned building in Chicago was a secret project set up by the scientists of New Sanctuary, but was then abandoned a long time ago. Jake and I weren't able to learn more than that about it, except that the project was subsequently hijacked by that human trafficking organization and turned into a trap for clueless thrill-seekers and conspiracy buffs. Eventually, the shady organization quit operating the elevator, too, and stopped monitoring that specific interdimensional access point. That is, until Jake reminded them it was still active. Following Jake's trespassing, the criminal organization probably resumed monitoring the access point for a while. But as nobody showed up anymore for quite some time, they once again stopped monitoring it. Time within the reality where I saw people in cages works differently relative to our world. Because of that, when I showed up there, roughly 3 years had elapsed since Jake had first reached that access floor. That explains why, fortunately for me, That access point was not under active surveillance by armed guards or anything like that. They didn't expect any further intrusions. At some point during our stay in New Sanctuary, Jade has let us know that they had lost the live feed from the elevator. Their best guess is that the condemned building has been demolished, at last. It won't be possible anymore to return to New Sanctuary City the way Jake and I had arrived here. Jade and I have been growing closer with each passing day. We have been spending a lot of time together, learning more and more about each other. She told me she's part of an elite special corps tasked with highly dangerous intelligence-gathering operations throughout the multiverse. She has been fighting the interdimensional bad guys since she was 15 years old. I admire her in a way that's beyond words. She's been making a difference. That got me thinking. Which brings us to today. As I'm writing down these final words in the diary I started a month ago, it's exactly 3:34 a.m. It's still dark outside. I'm in my room, awake, sitting on the bed. A soft red glow bathes the place. My newly acquired implants have replaced the goggles. Jade is asleep by my side. At 9:17 a.m. today, the passageway to my world finally becomes accessible. But I won't go. Over the last 2 weeks, Jade and I have fallen deeply in love with each other, forging an unbreakable bond between us. And I have decided to stay in New Sanctuary with her. She shed tears of joy when I announced my decision to her a week ago. In this alien world that feels more like home than home itself, I have found the place where I belong, and the true purpose of my existence. I've been blessed with the unconditional love of a woman, and with a precious chance to make a difference. 4 days ago I told Jake. He wasn't surprised. He kind of knew. He's sincerely happy for me. We shook hands, wished each other good luck. He must go back. His life awaits him in Chicago. Mine is here with Jade. He asked me if I wanted him to bring messages to my family and Sarah, my girlfriend from a past life. To my parents, hoping they're still alive, please tell the truth, everything. Tell them I'm truly happy now, and that I love them. I replied. And to Sarah? Jake asked. Just tell her I've moved on with my life, I said. In a couple of hours, I'll go to bid my friend farewell. I'll entrust him with this diary of mine and instruct him to share my story on that dark web discussion forum, assuming it's still there. Final note, to whoever reads this, open your eyes, observe your surroundings, and question everything. Life offers far more depth than initial appearances suggest. Embrace new possibilities, regardless of how unconventional they may seem. Rest assured, you will not regret it. I give you my word. Fabian.